Okay, this is a video on atmosphere and environment chapter. Okay, now the first thing in this chapter is you need to know that air is a mixture of different gases. Now you need to remember the composition by percentage volume of the different gases in the air. So the first thing is the first component of air would be nitrogen. Okay, it's a bit blur. Okay, nitrogen 78%, oxygen 21%, carbon dioxide about 0.03, and the rest of the substances in the air would be things like argon, water vapor. And of course, for water vapor, the amount varies. So, for example, in Singapore, the percentage of percentage of air that from the water vapor would be very high compared to countries like in US or in Africa. Okay, so this part must remember. Now, air can be separated into its components by fractional distillation. Okay, so in order to separate air into its different components, we need to make it into liquid air first. Now, in order to make it into liquid air, we need to cool the air, compress the air in a giant compressor. Then after that, we can heat the liquid air, and then subject it to fractional distillation. Okay, so this is a fractionating column. So the component of air which has the lowest boiling point will boil first, and then it will rise to the top of the fractionating column. And this component is nitrogen. So nitrogen is the component of air with the lowest boiling point, and it will distill and get collected first. Okay, so at the bottom of the fractionating column, the components of air with the highest boiling point will distill and get collected last. Okay, so lowest boiling point get collected first, highest boiling point get collected last. Okay, as you go down the fractionating column, the boiling point will decrease. Okay, then after that we look at the pollutants of air. Okay, pollutants of air consist of ozone. Now, ozone is not really in the combined science syllabus, so you just need to know that ozone is a pollutant. Now, by pollutant, what we mean is that it is harmful to human being. That means that when you take in the gas, it is harmful to you. Okay, so the first one is ozone. The second one is methane. Now, where do you get this methane? Methane is actually a flammable gas. It is often used as fuel. For example, some vehicles, they run on CNG, compressed natural gas fuel. And the CNG, the main constituent of CNG is actually methane. Now, the source of methane, decay of plants and animals. Okay, for example, the food that we eat, they will be decomposed by certain bacteria in our stomach and also in our intestine. And then in the process, a gas would be produced, and then we fart. And a small percentage of our fart actually consists of methane, and that is why fart, sometimes the fart actually is flammable. I'm sure you have watched some YouTube video whereby people they light up their fart. Okay, anyway, it's a very dangerous act, so don't try it. By and large, it depends on the food that we eat as well. Okay, so the fart actually consists of a small percentage of methane. Methane is flammable, and the source of it is the decay of plants and animals. And methane can cause global warming. That means the temperature of the earth, if let's say the amount of methane in the atmosphere is very high, then the temperature of the earth will increase, because methane can trap heat, just like carbon dioxide. Okay, it's a greenhouse gases. It can trap heat on Earth's atmosphere. It can cause global warming. Now, the second pollutant is sulfur dioxide. Now, this is very important, sulfur dioxide, SO2. So you have to remember its properties. It is a colorless gas, and its odor is very sharp. It has a sharp odor, pungent. Now, the source of it, produced by volcano eruption, also combustion of fossil fuel. Example of fossil fuel would be petroleum. Yeah, so oftentimes questions would ask you, how is sulfur dioxide produced? So you have to write either volcano eruption or combustion of fossil fuel. So combustion of fossil fuel will be like from the factories, etc. Another pollutant is oxides of nitrogen, NOx, whereby this X can be 1, can be 2. Okay, oxides of nitrogen. So oxides of nitrogen refers to nitrogen monoxide or nitric oxide. These two are the same. It refers to NO, and nitrogen dioxide, NO2. And this oxides of nitrogen is produced by lightning activity. So this oxides of nitrogen is produced by a very, very high temperature. For example, during lightning, the temperature is very high, or in the car engine, the temperature is very high as well. Now what happens is, at a very high temperature, the nitrogen and the oxygen in the air will combine to form nitrogen dioxide. So they can combine in this manner to form nitrogen dioxide, or they can combine in this manner to form nitrogen monoxide or nitric oxide. Okay, so one thing you need to know is that nitrogen monoxide and nitrogen dioxide are produced at very high temperature. Now let's focus on car engine. Now in the car engine, petrol is burnt so that power is generated to move your car. Okay, petrol is burnt. But in order for the petrol to burn, it needs to be mixed with air, because without air, without oxygen, petrol will not burn. So there can be these two situations. There can be high air petrol mixture. That means you mix a bit of petrol with a lot of air. High air petrol, that means a lot of air, less petrol. Or low air petrol, that means less air, a lot of petrol. Now let's look at high air petrol mixture. That means a lot of air, less petrol. Now what happened is, okay, a lot of air means a lot of oxygen. Now a lot of oxygen means that the combustion would be at a very high temperature, because a lot of oxygen means that the combustion would be very intense. So that means the engine would be at a very high temperature, meaning that a lot of nitrogen dioxide will be produced, because nitrogen dioxide is produced at high temperature. And it means that carbon monoxide will be very little, because carbon monoxide, as you know, it is produced by incomplete combustion, whereby the amount of oxygen is not enough. Okay, so where there is a lot of oxygen present, then there will be very little incomplete combustion, meaning that very little carbon monoxide will be produced. And when this situation arises, the car will have a lot of power. So high air petrol mixture will produce very powerful engine. That means your car can move very fast. Now what if you have low air petrol mixture, meaning that very little air, a lot of petrol. Okay, very little air means that very little oxygen, means that less nitrogen dioxide. And since there is very little oxygen, means that there will be a lot of incomplete combustion, so a lot of carbon monoxide will be produced. Okay, and when this situation happen, the engine will be less powerful. Now one thing to take off is that this part, because this is an atmosphere and environment chapter. So regardless of whether it's high air petrol or low air petrol mixture, a lot of pollutants will be produced. High air petrol mixture, a lot of NO2 will be produced, which is a pollutant. Very little CO, which is also a pollutant. Low air petrol mixture, very little NO2, but a lot of CO. So it depends on, both NO2 and CO are pollutants. So different high or low air petrol mixture would produce different amount of pollutants. Okay, this one a lot of NO2, this one a lot of CO. So either way, pollutants will be produced in the car engine. Okay, just a matter of which pollutant will be produced more and which pollutant will be produced less. Okay, so this part is very important. Now the next thing is we move on to carbon monoxide, CO. So carbon monoxide is a odorless colorless gas, very dangerous gas because there is no color, no odor, and it is produced by incomplete combustion of fossil fuel. So this one is incomplete combustion, and for sulfur dioxide, it is combustion of fossil fuel. Now what happened is this carbon monoxide, it will combine with hemoglobin of the red blood cell. It makes the blood unable to transport oxygen to body cell. And the effect is it will cause fatigue, because if our body doesn't have enough oxygen, we'll feel giddiness, headache, or breathing difficulty. Now this is what happened. Now this is actually the hemoglobin, the red blood cell. So when we breathe in, if we breathe in carbon, this hemoglobin, its function is to carry oxygen. Okay, carry oxygen to the rest of our body. If we breathe in a mixture of carbon monoxide and oxygen, what happens is this hemoglobin, it will carry carbon monoxide instead of oxygen to our body. So our body, all the cells in other parts of our body will be deprived of oxygen, and hence will feel fatigue or giddiness or headache or breathing difficulty. Okay, so the description of the effect of carbon monoxide is very important. Okay, it makes blood unable to transport oxygen to body cell, and the effect of it is fatigue, headache, breathing difficulty. Okay, the next part of the chapter is on, in fact this is the last part of the chapter, is on acid rain. Now acid rain, what is the meaning of acid rain? That means that the rain is acidic. Now it is defined as whenever the pH of the rain is 4 or below. That means when the pH of the rain is 1, 2, 3 or 4, then we call it acid rain. Now unpolluted rainwater has pH slightly less than 7. Now even though if you go to Amazon forest, whereby the pollution is really limited, the rain over there would have a pH value of less than 7, which means that it is slightly acidic. Why? So even though the unpolluted rainwater, the pH will be slightly acidic because of the presence of CO2. Now what happened to this CO2 is that carbon dioxide, now as you know, carbon dioxide is a non-metal oxide because carbon is a non-metal. So from your acid-base chapter, you know that non-metal oxide are also called acidic oxide, which means that they dissolve in water to form an acid. Now in the case of carbon dioxide, it will dissolve in the water to form, this is called carbonic acid. This carbonic acid is present in your soft drink. Okay, it is a very weak acid, and the unpolluted rainwater has pH less than 7 is because of the presence of this carbonic acid, which is a very weak acid. It's not going to harm you. Okay, so you have to be aware that carbon dioxide, actually the presence of carbon dioxide, which is carbon dioxide is present everywhere, it would make rainwater slightly acidic, but that is not called acid rain. Okay, because the pH of rainwater that has carbonic acid only will not be anywhere near to 4. Probably it's like 6.5 or maybe 6.2, something like that. Now acid rain, how is it formed? When acidic air pollutants such as SO2 and NO2, these two are the main contributors of acid rain. Must remember, SO2 and NO2, they are the main contributors of acid rain. So when these two substances or these two gases dissolve in water, they would cause the water to have a pH value of 4 or below. Now what happens is when SO2 dissolve in water, it will form something called H2SO3. Now this is called sulfurous acid. Okay, this substance is called sulfurous acid. By the way, this is called carbonic acid. Now this sulfurous acid will subsequently react with oxygen in the air to form our sulfuric acid, H2SO4. Okay, so this is like an intermediate substance. So that is when SO2 dissolve in water. How about when NO2 dissolve in water? it will combine with the oxygen at the same time to form our nitric acid. So nitric acid actually comes from nitrogen dioxide. Sulfuric acid actually comes from SO2. Alright? So the main contributors of acid rain, SO2 and NO2. And the cause of acid rain, it corrodes steel because inside steel there is iron, and iron will react with acid. Or limestone buildings. What is limestone? Limestone is CaCO3, calcium carbonate. So when carbonate, there is a reaction between carbonate and acid. It would give you salt, water, and carbon dioxide. So corrode steel or limestone building, leach nutrients from the soil. So because of acid rain, the nutrients from the soil will disappear. So a fertile soil will become an infertile soil. And then it reduces pH for pond or lake water. Now you cannot say acid rain make the seawater acidic, because seawater has a large body of water, large volume of water. So the acid rain will never make the ocean acidic. The acid rain will never make sea to be acidic. Acid rain will make pond or lake water acidic. Okay, and because of that, it will kill the marine creatures like the fish, etc. All right. So this is the last part of atmosphere and environment, acid rain. Thank you.